Buckle up, humpers, because you're in for another double dose of goodness. We kick things off with 16-time Classic Qualifier, 4-time Bassmaster winner, and 2014 Bassmaster Classic Champion, Randy Howell. He talks about his return to the Bassmaster Elite Series, but we're also joined by the guy who spent 3 days on the back deck of his boat at Lake Hartwell. That's right, Jake Latendresse with the ultimate Bassmaster behind-the-scenes show, Jake's Take. Both of them join me this week. Oh...
I'm Bob Cobb for the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course you, my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 211th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope wherever you're watching or listening from in the world that life is treating you well. As always, I am thankful that you've chosen to take a little time to get away from, the real problems on Earth and just join the particular tomfoolery that we share here each and every week. Speaking of which, a big thing coming down next week. Next week's show, you've got to tune in because we have a brand new feature that I'm excited to release during next week's show. I wish I could tease it more. I know a bunch of you are going to love it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, we have a freaking banger guest next week. So just make sure you check out next week's show. But before we get there, let's focus on this week's show. It is a big week. Moment of total honesty. As you watch this, God willing, I am either there or on my way to Lake Fork, Texas for the 5th stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series. Going to be an incredible event. It always is. Incredible fishing. What a freak factory Fork is. And I love going there. I mean, it is the reason I have the career I have. My career started at Lake Fork at the TTBC, thanks to Lenny, Katie, Andy, Harry, everybody, Eric, the whole gang from Gulf States Toyota and Octagon that once had faith in me to MC an event. I am thankful for all of them, and I look forward to returning to Lake Fork, seeing many old and new friends. If you are there, make sure you say hi to me. Would love to see you guys all. It's going to be an awesome tournament with giant weights as, well, that's why people go to Lake Fork. Let's be honest, no matter... But they go there for the big bite, and there is going to be big bites this week. I'm all excited about next week's show, but we got a banger here this week. We have Randy Howell returning to the Elite Series and making his first ever appearance on the Mercer Podcast. I'm thankful for that. We have a great conversation, but that's not all. We also are joined by Jake's Take. You might have thought I forgot about it because last week, I had to stay at Hartwell a little longer, and I got the opportunity to interview Paul Marks and Drew Cook, who were battling it out going down to the wire. It was a unique show, but because of that, I didn't get to do Jake's Take. But I will never forget about my boy Jake Latendresse, and he is part of this show. But without further ado, let's jump right into it and hook up with Randy Howell. Randy Howell, it is wonderful to have you back on the Bassmaster Elite Series and have you on this show.
Man, it is so great to be back, Dave. And I tell you what, I joked about it when I was on Mercer in the Morning at Hartwell. I said, I've dreamed of being on this show for the last 6 years. And I'm finally, same here. I've dreamed to be on this show for the last 6 years. So I'm honored to have me on here today. So it's really great. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to have you on any of the stuff that I'm lucky enough to do. Does it feel different? Has to a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely feels different. It's like, it's hard to describe. It's a fresh, refreshing new feeling. Almost like like you moved towns and went to a new school or something, and it's like, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Because it's not like I don't know everybody, and I still know most of the people. I don't know a lot of the younger anglers on the Elite Series. I'm starting to get to know more of them, but still, that part is different. But the refreshing part of just the good old feeling. Usually, you can't get something back when it moves, and when, you got the old nostalgia of, your favorite old restaurant in a small town, whatever that you grew up in, and you go back 20 years later or whatever, the restaurant's gone, strip mall's there, that whole feeling's gone. You can't ever get it back. But this time it's that same thing. Like I'm back, and when I walk on that stage and hear you talk, and I hear the crowd, and I see the people, and just that whole feeling, just gives me goosebumps again. I've always loved. So having it back is just really a good feeling.
Yeah. How has the response been from other anglers?
From what I've seen, it's been good. I kind of picked right up where I left off, because a lot of the ones that are there that have been there a long time that I know, I've never really lost touch with any of them, because I work shows and I see them here, see them there. And I watch all the tournaments, all the Bassmaster tournaments for 6 years that I haven't been in them. I still follow and watch live, watch everything. So I feel like I know a lot of the people, and so we're still friends, just distant friends, and now we're getting a little closer to more people. But I'm also getting to know who some of these new, rookies and younger anglers that have been making a name for themselves the last few years. I'm trying to get to know those guys too, and everybody's been super nice, so it's been great.
The response from the crowd, I think, has been really cool too. Like, I mean, just even these last few events, like, and you've had decent events where you were pretty close to cuts, but these last few events, I feel like, you've got some more screen time. And you've done some wild things in that screen time. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it really does. Like, when you go on social media, you hear how happy people are to see you back.
Yeah, that's the good thing that I really love. I've heard it for the last 5 or 6 years, the hardcore Bassmaster fan base that, is just irreplaceable. I mean, you can't make, as hard as everybody tries to make new fans, to make just try and doing something new and different. You just can't change history and the way things were made and the way things are going to always be. Just like the Bassmaster Classic, there's never going to be anything else like a Bassmaster Classic. And no matter what you try to do or create, it's never going to compete or compare with it. And so those fan base people, every time I work the Classic every year, that's what I would hear. Every third person in line would say, "When you coming back to Bassmaster? Man, we miss you over here on Bass." And I'd be like, the first couple of years, I was so mad. It would make me so mad because I didn't leave because of any problem or any reason. I just left at the time because it was an opportunity at the time to make more money for me with my sponsors, particular ones, and all that. And I really didn't think about it as like it ended up turning out later, and so I was always excited to meet and see the people again. But then when we'd leave that Classic, like, the people wouldn't know, where you been. They didn't know where I was or where to keep up with anything. Because, the majority of people that come to the Bassmaster Classic aren't hardcore follow every angler fans.
Yeah.
They're novice fans. They love the Classic and all, but a lot of people didn't know I wasn't even fishing. They would just be like, "Hey, you didn't make it out there today, but good luck next year." They didn't even know I wasn't even fishing on the tour sometimes. But that's the kind of people that are still the people that we promote to and that follow us and are our fans and our friends all over the country. They feel like they know you. And so having that group of people back, knowing that I'm back there, it's really been great.
Yeah, I think the Classic has a weird position in the world, similar to, I watched the Kentucky Derby yesterday. I don't watch any other horse races throughout the year, but I watch that every year. The Masters golf tournament. I probably pay a little more attention to the PGA definitely than horse racing, but I'm glued to the Masters, and the Classic has that vibe. Did you ever go through a period, where you thought, man, I don't know that I'm ever going to be in one of these again? That had to be a weird spot as a defending, as if somebody who's won it,
Yeah, absolutely. I've sat in every weigh-in and watched every one of them, and I watched everybody win. And every time it happened, I still, cry. Me, I'm an emotional guy, and I can't help it, and I watch everybody because I know how big the moment is and seeing it. And every time I would leave there, it would be a bittersweet feeling. I was proud for the person that won, and I was excited, but I also felt like, almost felt like, what am I doing? Why am I not here? Why am I not in this? I don't, gosh, I would leave frustrated, And then it didn't take very long in my mind. I started saying, and I'd tell my wife, and I'd tell Laker as he was coming through high school fishing, and I'd be like, well, I'm going to be back one day when you start to come up and when you start to get in it, we're going to go back. Thankfully, I've got that legend exemption for winning that classic. I never knew how important that would really be, but that paid off. And I said, we're going to cash that in real soon. So it finally happened.
Well, it is awesome to have you back. And I guess I kind of forgot. I mean, I've always said this about you, but you are truly one of the most camera-friendly anglers that there's ever. I mean, I always tell the story about how I remember I think we were on Lake George, and I was in the boat with Overstreet doing coverage, and he's taking pictures, and you hooked an 8-pounder and literally walked it around to our side of the boat so Overstreet could get the goods of you landing the fish. I remember Overstreet turned to me right afterwards. He's like, "Man, would you do that if you had that fish on?" And I'm like, "Not only would I not do that if I had a fish on in the tournament, I don't know that I'd do that when I was shooting a TV show."
Yeah. Well, hey, in this business, man, way back then, it's the same then as it is now. You got to do anything you can to keep yourself on the screen and keep yourself relevant and make people want to know you and want to see you and want to sponsor you at the same time. So I worked hard all my life to try to do that.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to talk to you about is your best impersonation of a raccoon, or whatever we would refer to you as, what you did at Pasquotank to get that bait. I want to ask you how badly you wanted that bait back, but I don't think I need to ask you that because I think I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've told this story 100 times since then, and it's amazing how no matter you do all you work hard, you do all the great things you can to hopefully be remembered. And then you do one thing like that. And that's all anybody remembers. It's so funny. But I wanted that buzz bait that was the first year Lunker Lure made it's got a lead shaft with a screw lead on it, and they changed it a little bit after that, but that old one, I've used it so long that it's developed that good squeak, squeak, squeak sound, and so loud that when it lands, 150 feet away on a long cast, you still hear it squeak, and I don't want to lose it so bad. It's just I got confidence, and I've caught so many bass on it, so I said, shoot. I mean, it ain't a big deal to get on the log and get the bait back to me. I wasn't even thinking about the camera being in there until I started doing it. And I heard him, and I turned around and looked, and he was filming me. And I thought when I got back to the boat, I said, that's going to probably make a good video. But I got it anyway.
A buzz bait, that's one of those baits specifically that, all baits, I think there's certain crankbaits that just, you can get 10 of them, and there's a few of them that just get eaten. Have you ever been one of those dudes who's done stuff to buzz baits, like tied them on your antenna in your vehicle and stuff? Like, do you do all that kind of stuff?
I've done a lot. I've done everything you can do back in the day, trying to make things the best, and any idea, any tip anybody give me, I've tried, but I've never been able to get a buzz bait to sound like that buzz bait, no matter what I did to it. And for some reason, I think that was a combined rust from it being in and out of the box, wet and damp, and then you put it up and it rusts a little bit, and you get out and start using it for a day or two, and it gets moving, and then all of a sudden it just sounds so unique. I'm like, I don't want to lose it. And when they hit it so hard when they blow that one up, it's really bugging them, and that's what I think about every time when I thought about breaking it off, especially when I can see it sitting there, and I'm like, you're better than this, Randy. You can go get that bait. Come on, get it. It's worth it. You'll catch it and make a lot of money on that bait again one day. You better get it. So I did.
Well, see, the going out and getting it isn't what shocked me. The fact that you did that seamlessly without even getting a soaker. To me, like halfway back, I'm like, God, that's what I fall in, or, like slide in a little bit or something. Did you ever think that maybe this was a bad decision, or you were committed from the start?
You might have heard me when I first stepped out. I stomped on the log because it crushed through right off the bat. It was hollow, and when it did that, I said this might not have been a good decision. And but then I after it busted through, I started seeing it was more solid. I reached up there and banged on, and I could hear it was a little more solid. So I wasn't worried about falling off as far because it was wide enough, and I'm still pretty agile, fragile, kind of both. But I didn't worry about falling in. I was committed. It's just like standing up on the bracket on the trolling motor. I don't think about falling in. I've never fallen, knock on wood, I've never fallen off my bracket sight fishing. And if I'm not sight fishing and I just try to step up there, it don't feel nearly as the same as when your mind is focused on seeing a fish. I just step up there unconsciously and do it, and you don't have any thought or fear of it. And that's kind of how when you get in that zone, same as crawling out on the log, I wasn't worried about it. I just had a goal to get that bait back and hurry up and throw it again, try to catch a bass. And so that's why to me it wasn't that big a deal, you know.
Well, speaking of sight fishing, after that event we head to Hartwell, and you took the lead 2 minutes after you took off. Like literally you were the anti-curse, the people that say, which I've never got the whole catching a fish in your first cast, but I have had days where you get one on the first cast and it doesn't work out well. But I mean, to me, whenever they want to bite, they should bite. But
yeah,
tell me about the race to that fish.
Well, in practice, I was looking for a lot of bad fish, and I wasn't seeing very many. But this top pocket, as I cut across the pocket, I spotted this fish, and I skipped my Cinco there with my hook bent in, and it swam right over there and ate it, and it went sideways, and I could see it was long, and I just assumed probably 6-pounder. Shook it off, and it went right back, and I marked it, and I saw it was on a bed right in the middle of the pocket on like a little sandbar, and a little 2-pound male there. So I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's day 2 morning of practice. So we got like multiple days left. I go back on the 4 o'clock on the last practice day before I go pull out, and I ease in there and I skip back over there again. And all of a sudden I see the big shadow coming, and I'm like, he's coming to get it again. I'm like, oh my God, why can't this happen in the tournament? This never happens in the tournament. And so I don't hook him or nothing. I shake him off. I said, okay, if I get a good boat number, I'll start here in the morning, because for 6-pounder is going to go a long ways in this tournament. And so I get boat 54, and I'm right dead in the middle almost. And I'm like, I probably can't make it there, but I'll try. So I ran, and I had schooling fish that I passed by to get there, but they were everywhere. So I'm like, I got to go. So I roll in, and when I'm in, my heart's pounding, and I'm running a Ranger Yamaha this year, and I come around the corner and nobody's there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. But as long as the fish is still there, this is amazing. I said, no, hopefully I'll stay here as long as I've got to stay here to catch it. As my mind was thinking, if it's hard to catch, but it'll be worth it. So when I roll in, I'm going to hear the boats behind me coming. I look back, and I think Prosnick and Greg DePalma, and it was boats. I haven't gotten to know everybody's boat wrap yet. That's the other thing about it. So I don't know who they all were, but it was everybody who was coming behind me, but nobody thankfully was in front of me. That was a miracle. And you could hear in my video, I was still putting my power poles down. I hadn't even put my poles down yet, guys. I was easing in, and I made that long cast where it was, and I started, how it is with old wacky, I'm wacky, bouncing that wacky Cinco, and all of a sudden this already starts to go slack. I'm like, oh gosh, I tighten up, and I crack, and when I hit it, it was like, I said, oh, that's the one, that's not the male. And when it came up, I'm like, oh my God, it couldn't hardly fight. It was just like, whoa, like an old dinosaur. It was so old. And so when I grabbed it, I was fired up, and I knew it was in it. And the same time I hear another boat coming, and I look, and I see them turning around. I even said to my marshal, I said, you see that boat just turn around? And I was like, oh, I can't believe it. It was my day today, And I said, call it a 6.5, because I don't want a big eye. And then it's so skinny. And then later in the day, I'm having a great day, and I'm culling, and I reached down there culling, and I got my scale out. I said, let's just weigh him. I'm like a kid. Every time I'd look in there, his tail was curled up. He was so long. I pulled him out and put him on the scale, and he weighed like 8.1 on my scale. I'm like, oh my God, it's an 8-pounder. And I said, text the Bass Track guy and let him know that I made a mistake there. That's an 8-pounder. So he went and did that, and I sent it in, and they were like, oh my gosh. So then they changed it on Bass Track late that day. And but anyway, that's the whole story, man. I'm telling you, that fish basically helped carry me through. I threw back 3.5-pounder that day. So without that fish that day, I would have had another 3.5-pounder. I'd have had like 17 something. I'd have still, and then 14.5 next day. I'd have still made the cut. But I may not have made the 10 cut the next day with another 14.5. It would have been close. So that fish goes a long ways. I'm just glad it was my time to be that guy, because it's always somebody else. And I always say, gosh, man, if I could have just been a little bit earlier, I'd have got that one,
Did Porosnik and them say anything, or did they just see you putting it in the live well and
Yeah, I don't even think they saw me catch it. I think as soon as you come around a blind corner, you quickly see a boat and you just turn right around because it was kind of like a 90-degree angle right there. And but in line, they were all asking me, "Did you catch that fish? How big is that?" And Prosnick, you know him, he's a puppy, like that with me. And he was like, he wouldn't even smile or say nothing. And I was sitting there telling him the story about, I said, "Oh, man, it's an 8-pounder." And he was just sitting there. He said, "Yeah, I tried to start on that fish. That was me in that boat." I said, "Oh, God, I didn't know that. I'm sorry."
No, that was an awesome fish. And watching you fish that week felt very natural. Like that's Randy Howell fishing, like working around those docks and fishing. Am I reading that right? Like, or would you say that's a way you are very, I mean, it feels like apart from maybe Alton Jones, like there's very few people I would say have caught more fish on camera on a soft plastic, stickworm, Sanko, whatever, than you. But that fishery set up well for you the way you were fishing.
It did. I love it. The last time I had been there was 2018 when I captained Laker in the Bassmaster High School Open there. And it was his senior year in high school. And we went down in like 2 days in practice. So I got to practice and we found a bunch of schooling places and some bed fish and Cinco fish and all that. And it was almost the same time. We were almost dead on the same time. So when that schedule came out and I was in this year, I'm like, man, I can't wait for Hartwell because I feel like that would be my best chance, in the first part of the season to have a really good tournament. And, I really thought I could win. I mean, I felt good about my chances to win. I really thought I would run across more bigger fish the way I was fishing, but the water clarity got so bad everywhere, and just a lot of stuff that changed. Of course, it always happens, but it just kind of messed up enough. So I was really thankful to slip off like I did and still finish sixth. Because it happened to everybody. But I love that lake. I love to go there every year. I mean, even different times in the year, I think it's just a great lake. It fishes big, big, big for everybody to spread out. And a lot of ways of techniques can be done there. So I love to go back. So Neil Paul, you need to be listening to this. Get us back there every time. I want to know the Bassmaster Classic there too. I want to get back in a classic there.
I'm pretty sure we'll be back there. I mean, they didn't build that facility for us not to go. I mean, when people were like, "Do you think we'll be back here?" I'm like, yeah, look around. I'm pretty sure we'll be back.
When you got a Chris Bowes street in the park. Shout out to Bowes, man.
Hank's got a street too, but it's like a dirt road. I think it's like a back alley that they had to build. I might be wrong, but I believe there's a Hank Street that was built because they had to build it like the night before the Classic or something like that because of I forget what was going on. Maybe it was a weather situation or too muddy, or there's something, but I'm pretty sure Hank's got something there. You've mentioned Laker a few times, and I think it has been awesome it's weird for me, to be honest. It's weird for me to weigh in Bo Browning. It'll be even weirder when I weigh in Laker, just because, I mean, him and Oakley sat in the front row of every weigh-in, and there's kids that pop in when their dad's about to weigh in. But they would sit from the first fish until they, you weighed in, which, depend on where you were in the order. I mean, so they'd watch the entire way and to see how Laker has embraced the same dream. But as a dad, is that weird? Is that exciting? To see a kid literally following in your footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really cool. It's really fun. It's kind of a hard thing to explain what it feels like because there's a side of me and Robin both that we in the beginning, especially with her because she homeschooled Laker his whole time in Oakley. We put Oakley in 9th grade in high school to play basketball because he loved basketball. So, but the whole time Laker was in school on the road, and she being a big educator, she wanted him to be high goals to get into something that is passionate, that you love to do every day, but also something that you can make a good living doing. And we know fishing is hard to get into that right off the bat and make money doing it. And so we didn't really push it on him. I didn't push it on him. She didn't push it on him. She actually tried to kind of guide him away to do something else, but he was hardcore set on it, And Oakley, he loved fishing. He won the Bassmaster Junior stuff and state championship and all, did great. But he still had a mindset that he wants to get into some real estate. He's at Alabama in college. He wants to make money quick, and bass fishing is not a way to make money quick. So, but it's a passion job. You got to love it. And so Laker, he's eat up with it. So once we knew that we were set and he got his guide license on Guntersville and he's making money, got married and all that's good. Once we knew he was locked in and I really knew that he had what it took to make it, I kind of turned the corner on like, now he's all in. Now I'm going to go all in with him and I'm going to try to help him as much as I can. And I want to see him be successful and, and just watching him come along and do that. But just seeing, how just the good kid he is, not just because he's my kid, but he's just, he's personable, he's humble, he's a sweet spirited kid. He loves to see, other people do well, like the tournament at Santee that he almost won in the Open. He finished second, and Kyle Austin won that one at local there. And, but just seeing him in that one, as hard as it was for him to know that he caught that many fish and still didn't win, but he was still genuinely is as excited and happy for that guy as he would have been for himself. So that's that's a cool thing to see. That's what means more to me than anything.
Does he remind you of you when you were his age, or is he very different?
Boy, he's very different. He really is. He's so different. He's so different that me and Robin say a lot of days, how is he our son? Because I'm so type A, particular, neat, clean, pick it all up, put it in order. I'm like that. And my reels are all laid out. My handles are just right, lined up. I can't have a side. And he is totally opposite. He is a wreck, a mess. His truck full of trash all the time. His boat's just all unorganized. He gets boxes in from sponsors and he opens the lid and just throws the box in there and leaves the box full of baits. And like you open up, I got in his boat yesterday. He got a new skeeter deal and his boat's beside mine. I got in there, tried to get something out before I left. I'm like, it looks like Bass Pro Shop's in your boat, dude. Take the stuff out and line it up so you know what you got. He said, oh, it'll be all right, Dad. Oh, it'll be all right. He don't care. He's so laid back. And I think that really helps him, because he seems to be so cool, calm, and collective. He doesn't seem to ever get stressed. And I noticed it in high school fishing when I captained him, sitting there hours every day captaining him. And I was always aggravated because he wasn't intense enough, or he wasn't like me. And that's the problem. If they're not like you think they're not good or not right, because I think he needs to be more intense if he's going to be a pro fisherman. But he's proven to me that, his laid back nature, he can do it and do great at it, man. And he amazes me sometimes, even how he, like at the Columbus Pool, Mississippi, the other week in the Open, he had a bad first day. He missed a bunch of fish on a buzzbait. He told me that night, he said, yeah, I'm going to just lock through tomorrow and I'm going to go back up there and I'm going to just power pole down. I'm going to fish 15, 20 minutes quiet in one place. He said, and I think they're out there and I think they'll bite. And dang, if he didn't go power pole down, nobody else went around there because the water was so shallow. He got quiet and sat in there, and he already thought in his mind that would work. And then he's got videos on it he put on his Instagram, and then buzzbait fish just smashing that buzzbait. And he had it sit there 15 or 20 minutes still and quiet with no electronics on before them fish would actually react. And he caught 16 pounds, 10 ounces or something, come all the way back and got a check and saved his points again. So he does good things. He makes good decisions. And I think he's got the natural instinct. And I want him to be more electronic minded because he's so good with the scope. He's so good with that, but at the same time, he wants to fish like me because me and him, he's fished like me so long. So he has a hard time of committing to do all scoping when he could probably do better sometimes if he would. Sometimes what I've taught him might hurt him in this day and age with that technology side, but he's blended. So whatever happens, if we ever go to a blended type schedule or a half or with scope, no scope, he'll be one of them kids that'll be able to still shine.
You brought it up, so I got to ask, in a perfect world, where would you like it to go? If you are the commissioner of bass fishing and you could decide what we do with that in the future, what would it be?
Well, I know how controversial it is and how mad people get so quick over it. Gosh, it's crazy what it's done to the sport. But I really feel like, in fairness, I think a blended schedule where maybe it was half the tournaments, you could do it half the tournaments, maybe not. Because I think even if we did every other day, and like some of the other tours I like on MLF, have one period of scoping out of 3. And then on the invitationals of MLF, they have, one day you can do it, next day you can't do it. And they have the lock box, all that. That's so complicated to keep up with, and police and all that. I feel like just simply having a tournament that you can and a tournament that you can't, that might just be the right, fair thing. Because I don't want to, I know a lot of the guys my age and a lot of the ones that have been around a while are really, really hate it. And they want it to be totally gone, and I can see some arguments for that, but at the same time, I don't want to penalize all the younger guys that's their life, and they're trying to make a living. They got dreams in this sport, and they're doing well with it, and I don't want to just cut them off and make them have to start all over again, because that don't seem right to me either. I feel like it's a tool, and you got to be good with it, and you got to put your time with it. And I'm trying to do that, and I have done that, and I utilize it, and I feel blind if I didn't have it. I mean, I'm looking at it all the time, no matter what. I'm not always catching my fish, watching them bite my bait, but I'm still using it to catch my fish everywhere I go. So it's part of how I fish as well. So I think a blend would be the fair way to do it, and that would kind of make it better for everybody. I don't know.
Well, and then that way, at least your Angler of the Year has been tested every way. Like whoever wins Angler of the Year, you want to be like that. And I equate it to, for years there was people, Patrick Walters, I use him as a prime example because he would be in the top 10 for Angler of the Year every year. Then he would go to the north, and the smallmouth thing he couldn't do. Well, he figured that out, and now he's a more complete angler, and I'm sure a Angler of the Year title is in his future. But that's, as a fan of the sport, you want to see everybody excel at every level. So we'll see where it goes. I think what you mentioned is one of the things, because it's so polarizing. I think that's one of the things that gets talked the least about, like how good of a tool it is, even if you couldn't see fish on it. Like, even if that's not going to happen, but you know what I mean? Like the ability, you couldn't see fish, but just the ability to look forward and be like, I am dead on this break. I am, there's no guessing anymore.
That's right. There are grass lines and holes and stumps and just everything now. It's so much more fast and efficient. And that's why you've seen the weights rise in all local tournaments everywhere. Like at Guntersville, you can't hardly win a local tournament on Guntersville less than 28 to 30 pounds, because somebody in that group is good with the scope. The Nutt Brothers, Tucker Smith, Hayden Marbert, all the guys that are around there, they're going to catch that with it. And so you got to be able to do it, and you got to just get proficient with it. And I may not ever be as good with it as some of them young guys, because I've got so much knowledge in my mind built up that stops me from going in the middle of the lake for longer than 30 minutes. If I go out there for 30 minutes and I'm chasing one around, I look over there and I see that point and that dock or that tree laying in the water, and it's just calling my name. It's like, Randy, come on back to the bank. Come on back to the bank, man. Listen, don't worry about them fish out there in the middle of the lake. So it's hard to go away, but I'm learning to do it better and better. So, but I still like you say, blended schedule, I think would be fair for everybody. Then you'd have a complete Angler of the Year. You'd have a complete little bit of everything that everybody could get better with. Because I feel like in this sport, when we fish 9 events across the country in a whole season, you're thrown everything. Like we're about to go to Lake Fork, then we're going to go to Sabine. We were talking about, we're going from a big fish place to a little fish place, a place with a lot of fish, a place that don't have a lot of fish. So we have to do everything. So why not let everything be done and have everybody have to learn how to do everything to be the best at it?
Today's high-tech fishing world can be a real pain in the neck, especially if you're running the wrong mounts. Beat Down Outdoors, they bring the graph to you. And they support this podcast and care enough about you to make this a short ad read. Check out Beat Down Outdoors. Now back to the show.
When you're on the water competing, what percentage of your decisions are calculated and what percentages are what percent are what you just talked about, like that voice that just says, just do this?
Yeah, a lot. I'm a very instinctive angler. I do a lot by instinct and intuition and just feelings. Probably more so than people ever realize. I don't know. I've never been a big map it out and plan it out kind of guy. I've done it, I've tried, but I still do most of my damage running down the lake, looking, seeing, looking at my graph, looking, seeing, and riding, and just getting that feeling I need to go do this or go do that. Some of my biggest wins and good events have been on instinct. And so that's kind of who I am.
Well, I mean, and obviously the most famous one being your classic win, which did a total about face U-turn to win that event. So after you do that, you'd have a hard time not paying attention to your instinct. Is that something over time that you just get better at?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's something too that you're just born with, that it's just naturally in you. Because you can't teach somebody to be like that. Like Aaron Martin's one of our dear friends that's not with us anymore. Aaron was called the natural because Aaron was probably the most instinctive, intuitive, natural angler. And I was good friends with Aaron, and Aaron would just blow your mind with the stuff that he would say and do and think or tell you that he did. That's why you can never emulate Aaron, because he would mess you up, because if you couldn't do what he did because you couldn't think like he thought. And so, but instinct was born into a person, and it's just like coaching basketball and kids, like with Laker and Oakley. When I coached kids basketball when we were at home a lot in the rec leagues, and I would try to teach. And Laker was a giant, got up tall, and he was taller than all the other kids, like this much. And I'd be like, I got me a big man, and Laker would get out there. And he was not aggressive. And them little bitty scrappy kids would jump all over and just take the ball from him. And he'd like, okay, you can have it, and let them have the ball. And I would get so mad because I was so aggressive and so intense. And you couldn't teach him to be instinct. You couldn't teach him to have that wiring that makes a kid be aggressive for something versus not. You couldn't teach that. And I learned that through basketball. And Oakley got out there. Oakley was totally opposite. Oakley's like me. He's aggressive. He went after it, and he was a baller. And the same with fishing. You can't teach somebody. You can teach somebody to be good at fishing, but you watch some anglers that are good at fishing. They are good at it because they've used a different way. Drew Gill, for instance, on the MLF side, Drew Gill I've helped Drew a lot as he's grown up with high school.
Amazing,
fishing. Unbelievable guy, but he's totally an intellectual angler. He is electronics, intellectual thought, and it totally blows my mind. I love to talk to the kid and just hear how he thinks and try to, and it's like, that's not who I am. I can't do that. So you don't even need to try. So you got to find out what your niche and the way you learn and the way you are. And you just got to build on that, but you can't try to go make yourself somebody that you're not. And that's what I tell Laker all the time. You just got to follow your path, and you got to do what feels right to you. Because if you don't, you play somebody else's game, you're going to go down the tube,
Yeah, Drew I don't know Drew at all, but I mean, just listening to some of his interviews and stuff, he's amazing to me. The way he thinks, and it's just not like, I mean, he doesn't get involved in the, like, is this right or is this wrong? I mean, I grew up in a time with this. Yeah. I mean, it's like asking somebody, why did you embrace a TV remote? Why didn't you just keep getting, like, I mean, when I was a kid, I was the TV remote because my dad would be like, go change the channel. But his way of thinking is amazing. You mentioned Aaron, and I never get tired of these stories because I have a bunch of them that I witnessed. What is the most amazing thing you saw him do competition wise, where he thought of something that you would probably have never thought of?
Yeah, you have to all go. It's so many of them, like you say, but what I'm about to say. The birds on the reeds at Lake Havasu that time, that was the one. That's the one that just took the cake. That blew my mind, because I was staying in the campground beside him. We used to camp with him, and Leslie and his kids and ours, and he was catching them, and he wouldn't say a lot at first, because he was trying to win. And then when it got where I wasn't in the cut the last day, and I start talking to him at the campground, and he's just giggling and laughing like he was. He said, "Hey, they're eating blackbirds. They're eating blackbirds on the reeds, man. They're blackbirds. That's how I figured them out." He just laughed. He was just like a kid. He was so excited because he had figured. I said, "They're eating blackbirds." He said, "Yeah, the blackbirds come down to get water, and they reach up there, they bust them, and you can throw a frog in there, or you flip in there on them, and you shake it on the reeds, and they come up and get it." He said, "Oh, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. You can't believe you didn't figure that out."
And it would go to a whole different level. Like I had that conversation with him at that tournament, and he's like, "Come on, Mercer. You know how good a blackbird would taste to a bass? Like, just think of the other things. Just think about how good a blackbird would be a bass." And I'm like, I would never stop to think of like what this would. But routinely, I remember me and Overstreet were covering him in La Crosse, and he was fishing this channel, like a man-made boat channel. And it was like the width of, I don't know, it's probably 60 feet wide.
Yeah, mouth of the little Black River deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was catching an insane amount of fish. We were covering him. And that's when the flotillas were really big. I mean, Live has really cut down on the amount of boats that go out and chase you guys. Yeah. But we were kind of blocked out. So we talked to him the next morning. We're like, yeah, we got to get closer to you because we're getting blocked out from all these spectator boats. And he's like, and I said, "Where can we go?" And he's like, "Bro, just go to the other side of the channel, pull down. It's perfect." And I said, "Okay." So we pull in there and we go to the other side of the channel. And I'm like, "Right here?" And he's like, "Yeah," pulls down. All right. So we do that. And he, doesn't catch him for like the first hour. And this is like, he was blistering them before this. And he kept looking up at us and like, just like, almost like, oh. And then finally he's like, bro, you're ruining everything. You got to leave. You got to go. And initially my thoughts like, oh, he thinks we're bad luck, because that happens. And I'm like, we're ruining everything. He's like, yeah, bro, what happens is the shad come in the channel and you interrupt the shad. And if you're not there, then the shad aren't interrupted. But because you're interrupting it, they don't make it around to me. So the bass don't feed. And that's why I'm not catching them. And I remember turning to Overstreet and just being like, this dude is nuts. We pulled out of the channel, and I swear to you, 20 minutes later, dong, he catches. Yeah. I mean, the way his mind worked, I wish the world got to see him with forward-facing sonar. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, it would have been so amazing. That's what I say. Tucker Smith, who finished second last week at Hartwell, Tucker, grew up fishing with him a good bit. Logan Martin and Tucker's real quiet, so he don't talk and tell a lot of stuff. But Aaron used to tell me Tucker was like my little protege. Tucker listens and he fishes just like me, he thinks like me. He's like, he's just like me. He's gonna be awesome one day, man. He's gonna be kicking your butt one day. And he would just laugh about it. And so Tucker has probably a lot of knowledge that he learned a lot fishing with Aaron and Tucker. We were talking about it in line at Hartwell last week, and he said, "Yeah, I wish he was around to see to see how good he would do with forward facing sonar, because he would probably be amazing with it, as good as he was without it." Yeah,
and he was. I mean, for his natural angler, he was also like a big technology guy. Like he was one of the first side imaging guys. One of the, he embraced all that stuff pretty early.
Yeah.
An amazing man that we were all lucky to have in our life. I always say the weirdest thing about Aaron is, sadly, when people pass, I think no matter who it is, people are like, oh, that person was amazing. That, they bring the amazing, but I feel like Aaron was so special. Nobody ever would have predicted what would happen with him, but he was so special. I think we all knew how special he was at the time. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have to pass for people to be like, wow, that he was an amazing human.
Yeah, you got it right. That's exactly right.
The world needs more like him.
Yeah, that's right. Need to be a lot more people like that on our tours that are grateful and thankful to get up and go fish every day and do what we do, and and stay a little more positive about stuff than not, because that's one thing about it. He didn't ever get down in the doldrums or negativity, and he didn't ever get caught up in any of the the gossip or any of the stuff. He just focused and did what he did, and always loved it. And he was always laughing and smiling. The only time he was in a bad mood was when he wasn't catching them good, which I wasn't very often.
No. Does that bother you? The amount of negativity and stuff that floats around fishing?
Yeah, it does. It's sad to me that, but that's just the world, and it's the world we all are in because of technology and of social media and all the stuff that we all make our living with. It's just still sad that there's that many people, even in our sport, that's as pure as our sport. There's still that many people that have such terrible, that can be so nasty and angry, and like comments, just reading comments on one thing to another, as simple as anything can be on a simple video post of a fish catch. You read comments and you think, what is wrong with people? Why are people so mad or so angry, worried about, how are you even watching and following fishing if you think like this? How'd you even find this video if you think like this? You shouldn't even be following me or watching my video if you're got that mindset. I don't understand it, but it is just the world we live in, and it's the thing that we just have to try to keep smiling and keep doing the best to promote good, and remember what we do this for, and thankful to be doing it every day, and just try to make it better every, one day at a time, each person at a time,
That's the right way to do it. And it's not just, people think you're like the forward-facing sonar thing. Sure, people have their opinion of that. I'm talking about, you want to find out how bad you are at bass fishing, just catch a fish on Bass Live. You see people landing 8-10 pounders, and there is a bunch of people who are like, oh yeah, he shouldn't have done that. That hook set was wrong. The direction that, I'm just like, it worked.
Yeah. As simple as like I posted a video at the Albemarle Sound in practice and bouncing in the boat, showing how rough it was. Just a little clip like that, and you get hundreds of comments, and you get people that say, strap your rods down. You must not be too rough. I'm like, oh, my rods are strapped down. They'd already been gone if they weren't strapped down. People, every little thing you can criticize to try to come up with. It's like, why take the time to do that? I don't understand it. But it's probably never going to get better. We just gotta do our best to do, to shine good, positive light, and and my faith, and that's what keeps us going. And I'm just thankful and trying to do everything right. That's the only other thing. Everything is so critiqued. You've got so many rules, and everything is so critiqued. You just really have to be careful not to mess up on some little thing somewhere, because you'll get crucified for it if you do. So you just have to really think hard. And that's the thing with Laker, young as he is, he's loose and goosey, like I said, laid back. Sometimes he's not worried about or thinking, and that just makes me think more about, you got to really pay attention, read your stuff, know what you're doing, and just make sure you do everything right, because you don't want to mess up, because people will really hammer you if you do, and you don't want that to happen. So
yeah. Well, speaking of doing everything right, one of the many things that you do right, dude, is your relationship with King's Home. It is amazing the amount of money that you've raised, and really, I think you've inspired a lot of boat giveaways. Like, since then, you see different charities and different people doing boat giveaways. Tell me about that relationship.
Yeah, that's the thing that we're most just proud of and thankful for, that we've been able to be a part of. When we started it way back in like 2011 and 12, and it was the 2007 Classic in Birmingham, and they sent a message to me on Facebook. Well, back then it was probably just my website, and said we want some Bass guys to come over here and do some talks to the kids at the boys' ranch. And at the time, Bassmaster was on by ESPN, and they'd say, well, we can't send a group over there because Jimmy B Foundation is all we work with. So if you do something, you got to do it on your own. So I just went over there to do a good deed. And, once I got over there and met them and started going through, they took us on a tour of everything. And I was like, gosh, man, I was just in tears everywhere, just seeing all the hearing the bad stories of the girls and the boys and the abuse and the bad places they come from. And I knew right then we were there for a reason. We needed to do something to help. So that's when kind of started going and speaking and doing stuff to help them raise money. And then we come up with the boat giveaway idea. And then a year later, I went to Classic right there in Birmingham where King's Home is located. And we had all of them bust in there for the final day. And it was a Cinderella story. You couldn't have made it any better making it up. I mean, if I'd have written my own script, it couldn't have been as perfect as it was that day because I didn't have a clue that I had a chance to win. I was just happy to be in the final day and I could showcase them in the crowd and you were going to point them out and everybody was going to see them and they would feel special. And then hear Robin back there. She said, "Come on, bro." You had to do it, didn't you, Dave? You had to make me cry.
I think you made you cry. I mean,
you did this the one time a long time ago. You remember this in my house? You did this interview in my house after the Classic. No, it's something about you. I don't know what it is. It makes it happen. You bring the emotion out in me, but you just couldn't. You couldn't have scripted it any better. So since then, it's just gotten bigger and better, you know. Well, so anyway, come on. So it's 14 years now. So we've done the boat giveaway every year, $100 tickets. And man, we've raised $3.7 million.
Wow.
And I watched kids from way back there at that Classic that were, 12, 14-year-old kids that are now, 25, 27 years old that are married, already been through military, been through college. And I'm just success story after success story. Like it's about a 90% success rate King's Home has with the kids that come through there, that they're going to be successful, have a good job, going to have, that just changes their life. So, and I know everybody that's donated $100 for those tickets every year, I've watched it and I know how frugal that ministry runs and how much they do with that money and how legit everything is done. That's why we're so passionate about, making it bigger every year. And my goal is still to do 5,000 tickets in a year. That'd be $500,000. And because 340,000, like last year's $400,000 we raised. Last year's first year ever, the man won the boat. He was 79 years old, and he was a pretty well-off man, had a boat of his own, and he wanted to give the boat back. He wanted to sell the boat and give the money to him, so sold the boat for $75,000. They got the money back, so we raised $400,000 last year. First time that's ever happened. So we can do two, it costs about $170,000 to run one group home. So you raise, $400,000, you got two group homes that are run all year with house parents, 5 kids in them, everything. So you put it in perspective, and I know what we're working for every year. And that's why we're passionate about making it bigger and better every year. So I'm just thankful that we can do it. And that, and that's the stuff that keeps us focused on being positive. Because you see all this nitpicky stuff in the world going on, but then you look back at, these kids and these ladies and you hear all their stories and, that makes you get your perspective back right quick when you see how thankful we are that we are living like we live when these kids are struggling to survive. And so least we can do is support and help them and, and shine a positive light for them. And it's really over the years, it's helped not just this ministry, but in other states that have implemented what we've done and other ministries that have kind of brought to light need-based ministries everywhere around it. Because every state, every city has got a boys and girls home in it, some type that's real similar. And once somebody in the area sees it and knows about it and they want to get behind it and donate to it and help, it changes the world, one state, one city at a time. So, and that's what we're trying to do. And we're thankful that it's working out.
I think that's the ultimate level of success or goal in life, to make things better, to make an impact. And you guys are definitely doing that. So hopefully this show can help make an impact and we can continue to help raise more money. How do they enter?
Kingshome.com, just simple kingshome.com. If you just go /Randy Howell, it'll take you right to the boat picture donate page. But kingshome.com, $100 ticket donation, and you can do as many tickets as you want. It's tax deductible. The drawing this year will be November, is it 16th, 17th? Which year? This year. It's one day different every year, so because it's always on Saturday. So I think it's November, but it's on the website. I think it's November 16th. It's still pretty early right now. So, but the tickets are available all the time, and and we have a big kids fishing event. We bring all the high school fishing teams in to the girls' ranch, and we fish around the lake with them all, and then we draw the ticket at 2:00 Central that day, and one lucky winner gets that boat, and we get to make a huge difference, that lasts all year.
It's an amazing program. I'll put the link down below in this, so you guys try support this because the world needs more goodness like this. Yeah. Randy Howell, I love having you back in my life.
I appreciate you. Same here, brother. I appreciate that. I know we went a little long. We were like 51 minutes, but hey, it's all right. We had something good to talk about the whole time.
Yeah. Me and you have never run out of conversation.
Right.
So we'll definitely do this again in the future, but and not that you were out of my life. It's just we didn't get to see each other all the time. It's normal.
I see on the stage when I'd walk by and just wave at you and like, "Hey, Dave," and you're like, "You coming back?" Remember that? You said
that. I did, but I'm happy to see you back.
yeah, I am too. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
So hopefully we'll win something soon. We'll be back on here to talk about that.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Jake's take back in your life. And we're a week late this week, Jake, but I appreciate you as always.
Well, I figured you probably had a lot to talk about with the first and second place guys after.
Well, it
Lake
wasn't
Hartwell.
Actually first and second, because second actually was Tucker Smith. But
True.
it was the two guys battling it out. I was at a media event. They were both there. So it was a cool opportunity to sit down with them both, and
absolutely,
it delayed us talking, but
that's okay. We had basically 2 weeks off, so this fits in well. We can talk about Lake Hartwell and we can talk about Lake Fork.
Yeah, I'm excited for Fork. I mean, it's always,
oh my goodness,
it's an incredible event. Like I mean, it's weird going to a Fork event. And when this airs, it'll be tomorrow morning. But going to a Fork event, it has that weird feeling where it's almost like a classic. You know what I mean? Like where you're like, this isn't just going to be a normal tournament. It's freaking Fork.
Right. And we know. I feel like maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here by talking about it. But man, I think this time of year, there are going to be some giant bags coming in, and that's even a bigger exclamation point behind Lake Fork, just being able to fish it this time of year when the lake is totally full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It excites me. We'll talk a little bit about Fork, but let's wind things back to Hartwell, an incredible event.
As usual.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about it last week, but Green Pond Landing, everything that group does is incredible.
That is truly the way. Like if you want to increase, if you're a town or a city or a community close to a lake that's a big lake that can host large tournaments and has a large or good population of healthy bass, whatever kind of bass they are, Greens Pond is your model for increasing revenue in your community based on bass fishing alone, because that place is like, just every morning when we walk down at 5:30 in the morning, walk down to the camera trailer, we're all like looking around at and how everything's lined up, and the sort of the stadium seating is built into the hillside, and we're all walking down, all the lights are on, the fire department's there with their crane and the big flag, and we're just walking around going, this feels like the classic. I mean, it's just so perfect. So for all you communities out there that want to raise money near a lake, check out Greens Pond, because that place it's incredible.
So who did you spend the tournament with?
My first day, which was fairly uneventful, was with Welcher coming out of his win at Pasquotank. And I think he caught his fish, but he just didn't have that on Lake Hartwell. You either got to have 5 really good ones, or that you got to have that big bite big kicker to really put yourself in contention. So that didn't happen on day one. And then for the next 3 days, I spent with the one and only Randy Howell, which was a great experience. What an interesting, very well versed, professional, experienced bass fisherman in Randy Howell.
Yeah. I said this to him on this show, but he's one of the most camera friendly pros in the history of fit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, well, he once took an 8-pounder off to the side of the boat that me and Overstreet were on, so Overstreet could get pictures while fighting said 8-pounder. Even when it was kind of comical, but you would be like, okay, we're live on Livecast. And he's like, now explain to me what Livecast is. I want to make sure sometimes people are boring on this. I want to make sure I'm talking what I'm on. Like, he was trying to figure out what was what, because, I mean, it's a new factory. Things have changed a lot since he was here, but very entertaining stuff. Actually, not just this, but Pasquotank, that's when he raccooned across a log to get his buzzbait back. But great on camera.
That's what I mean about being so professional. That's probably some, part of what I want to talk about today is, I'm starting to see differences now between the older experienced anglers and the new kids on the block that are coming up. And a lot of those differences are, they're detail oriented, but they're sort of evolving in two different directions, which I find to be really interesting. And one of the things about people like, Randy Howell and your older guys is they know what they have to do to entertain, because at the end of the day, they're just bass fishermen. But when they're on television or in front of a camera, they have to be entertainers to be successful and be marketable. And that's definitely part of what Randy does. Excuse me. I thought I got rid of that cough.
Avco not only makes incredible outdoor clothing, but they care about anglers with their 10% pledge. Avco and the Shed family donate at least 10% of the company's profits to conservation and making fishing better. Now back to the show.
No, he is amazing, and I think there's a weirdness too. Like, his whole generation of anglers, like, they all kind of. Me and Swindle talked about it at the event. Like, how rarely you see anglers now showing their bait. Like, it used to be like, look what he ate. And it's not just because they're hiding it. I think there's a weird thing happening in the sport where you have a new generation of anglers, right, wrong, or indifferent, but they're very focused on catching fish. They have spent very little time focused on the showmanship. And not that they're not good at it, but when you think of how people, and I use Palnick as the example, because I'm like, when Palnick showed up on the Elite Series, he had Van Dam, he had Gerald, he had Ike, he had Skeet, he had, the list goes on and on. He had Randy Howell, he had all these different people that you could look at and be like, that's how they are on camera. That's what they give on camera. And it's weird because of the transition in the sport. I wondered that a lot of the younger guys, there isn't as much of that in some situations now. And they don't have that blueprint. Some of them, I mean, you look at Kyle Patrick. I mean, I love the dude. I mean, he's always giving you something. Even when he's got nothing, he gives you freaking something.
He's always got something.
But that's a huge part of the sport. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, it's one of the things that set fishing aside. Like, in baseball, you're not supposed to talk. I mean, baseball purists get upset that they interview the manager in between innings, in the dugout. Well, in fishing, you got to catch the fish. You got to explain why you're catching fish, make it entertaining, and promote your sponsors by showing baits and stuff. So there is definitely a difference there. I think a lot of the young guys will adjust in time, but it's not as simple a transition as it probably once was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And you take, there's introverts and there's extroverts, right? And you take the extroverts like Kyle Patrick, even Eastern Fothergill, if you go to YouTube and watch his Kings of Bass videos or whatever he's shooting for whoever, whatever brand, he's very methodical. He's very cerebrally oriented. It's not the entertainment is the value in the knowledge that he gives you, particularly from the new techniques and, chasing fish down with front facing sonar or whatever it is. He's got that technical knowledge base. And then you take someone like Kyle Patrick, who is funnier than Eddie Murphy at times. He's always cutting up. He knows the value of humor and comedy, keeping people entertained and keeping people engaged. And then you've got someone like Logan Parks. Like, Logan is a marketer. Like,
very professional.
When he came up in the Auburn bass fishing team system, he was the president of their club. He organized everything. He made sure everything was perfect, from boat wraps to jerseys to everything. And I knew even at that time when he was a junior at Auburn that he was going to be one of those guys. He just understands marketing. He's going to be of value to the brands that he represents because he knows how to push those brands. And then, you go and then you take the guys in the middle. Let's exclude the KVDs and the Randy Howells and the Iconellis and the Swindles, those guys that have been doing this for years. It's just second nature to them. But then you take someone like Lee Livesey. He knows, like, he's coming into his own. He's one of the best bass fishermen in the world right now, and he knows how to represent his brands. And I think the authenticity behind marketing is where it's at, because
huge.
You can sell a guy his own car, that doesn't understand when you're trying to jive him. But when you take someone that actually stands behind their products like Lee does, and all these guys we mentioned, they understand how to pull the authenticity out of each product, especially when it's happening. And you plug that into a live broadcast, like Randy knows how to plug what he's doing at that moment into the live broadcast, so he maximizes his opportunity when he's on camera, which is what, a lot of times you get a few words. Some people talk too much and some people don't talk enough. And I think the guys that talk too much are way better off than the guys that don't say enough, because they're not maximizing their opportunity. And that's really what their sponsorships are looking for, right?
Yeah. No, it's, and I think it comes in time too. You know what I mean? Randy Howell, if you go back and watch Randy Howell footage when he first started, I'm sure he is not the same. You know what I mean? That comes from years of like having coverage and watching and being like, I didn't like what I did there, or I need to be better, and just being comfortable. I mean, just the fact of being comfortable. I think that's why I understand. And we're seeing young anglers accomplish things that we didn't see in the past. So all of a sudden they're being thrust into that area, but it's definitely part of the sport. I mean, it's part of being a complete professional angler.
It's what builds. I mean, it's what helps grow this business. I mean, look at probably even in Japan, look at the difference. And I'm not knocking anyone at all, but look at the difference between Taku and Fujita. There's a huge personality difference. There's, they're both going out of their way to learn the language. Taku probably spent more time, learning the language from a.
But Kyoya is getting very good. Like
he is
super impressed. Like the only time he has trouble speaking English now is if you ask him about his baits, then it gets very choppy.
And you can't tell if he's trying to hide it or if he
I
just
know what he's
doesn't
up to.
It's like, what?
But on stage
what I
and
said,
everything, he's gotten so much better. But
the value there, this is a question. Do you think their main focus is impressing the American viewers, or translating that back into bigger dollars in Japan, or bigger support in Japan?
I don't know that I could answer that. I mean, that's, I think, is personal to them. I think they want to fit in, though. Like, I mean, I think they want to impress. I think if they impress the American viewers, they're impressing the Japanese viewers at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, they want to see that's it's everything. Like, I mean, part of why Takumi's Takumi in Japan is because of what he's become in America.
100%, yeah.
And again, it goes back to them being genuine and being who they are. If Kyoya all of a sudden started trying to be like Takumi, it wouldn't work.
No.
Or vice versa. Like if Takumi's tried to be very serious and it wouldn't work. If Lee Livesey tried to be Brandon Palnick, both two things that really work. Like Lee, I keep pointing it out to him. Lee is getting a huge pop from the crowd no matter where we go. And it's because it's genuine and it's real. He's had some big moments like the Classic. It's going to be real interesting to see how his hometown crowd reacts to him this week. It'll be great, but that's part of building a personality, a public persona, I think and he's been lucky to have had a big Bassmaster Classic in his home state. Like I always use the Conor McGregor example, and when they wanted to sell him to America, they showed the world him in Boston, where there's such a high Irish content, and they're going to cheer and go nuts for him. But the rest of the world saw that, and they're like, yeah, the rest of the world saw Texas react to Lee Livesey, and they're going to see it again this week, and I think that helps build. But that's
a great analogy, actually. The McGregor to Boston, because Boston's basically Dublin, Massachusetts.
Well, and that's nothing new. Like in all of, I mean, I look at what they do in pugilism or MMA or whatever that's the master marketers of the world. You know what I mean? Like. Don King, total scumbag, but a master marketer as far as like putting people in the right environment. I mean, you need to see the world react to that. So yeah, I digress, but I think they're all doing a great job. They just
everybody's got their own personality and own character, and I think the younger guys moving up. I'm no pro at this, but looking at it from the outside in, I think, advice to the younger guys that are coming up, even reaching down into high school and college right now, all you guys that are watching this that are coming up, you take your best qualities and you exploit those things and you turn those things into values. Like we talked about earlier, Easton, I do watch Easton Fothergill's YouTube videos because he's so interesting. It's very monotone and sort of it's very black and white, but he's so knowledgeable technically that you can understand why he does so well because he studies this. He's like a professor. He's teaching organic chemistry and fishing on YouTube, and you can learn a lot from that. You may not be entertained by like some people like Iconelli, but you're going to be entertained by the value you gain from his knowledge. So everybody's different. It's all a value. And when we go live, that's when you really see, how prepared or how someone is reacting to the camera. You know where they are in their professional world.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So Randy Howell. Yeah. So he basically caught everything on a Senko, and he kept it very simple. But, one of the things that I found interesting, when you ride with someone 3 or 4 straight days in a row, you do get to know someone. And it's like taking a road trip with somebody. And you have to, you show up in the morning, you're with them all day. Sometimes, things are going well. Sometimes things aren't. So I have to react a certain way in the back of the boat. And with someone like Randy Howell, who's been there so many times and he's been very successful. He's got a history on Lake Hartwell. It's one of his favorite lakes in the world to fish. I'd never been in his boat. Before the flip, I'd never covered Randy and really didn't know him that well. I actually got to know him a little bit before he came back, and was excited to be in his boat because of who he is, his experience level, I find it to be really interesting that he's one of those dads. You know, he's back in the elites. His son Laker is working hard in the opens, and you know, he and Laker remind me of Stephen and Bo Browning.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see these father son combinations in the elites because I just feel like the older guys, Steven and Randy, are looking at their sons like they're rooting for them harder than they're rooting for themselves, just like any great parent would.
Just natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it really interesting that they talk about their sons so much. And you know, Randy's a family man. That's one of the things that I learned about him being in his boat on Lake Hartwell for as long as I was he talked a lot, even when the camera was off, he talked a lot about his family and his faith in God and all those things. And I feel like the more I got to know him, the more I felt like this guy he's the real deal, and he's just a really genuine person. He's the guy you want to associate with because of his character.
Wow. Yeah, no, great man. A great man, very entertaining. So he
was fishing shallow water. And one of the patterns that he really locked in on was very similar to the pattern that Jason Christie won the Classic on Hartwell. They fished it differently, but the fish setup pattern was the same. They were all in that. All the fish he caught were in the walkways between the shore and the docks. And he found that the ones that were leaning in the water, and they created these little caves, you know, where the dock wasn't pulled back up to the shoreline yet, where the water had come up. That's where he found most of his fish. And Jason was flipping a jig in there, and Randy was skipping a Senko in there. So they fished it a little bit differently, but they both had to come in at the same angle. They had to pull down so they could get under the cables. Those cables at Hartwell are always playing, you know, a big role in how they do things. They're either going to pitch over them, get closer and pitch over them, or flip over them, or they're going to stay back and skip under them. And Randy, his accuracy at skipping anything really, but the Senko especially, on a spinning rod, his accuracy is phenomenal.
He's caught a lot of freaking fish on a Senko over the years.
Yeah,
I mean, he's pretty. I mean, watching him fish, that was stereotypical of Randy Howell fishing. I mean, I think a lot of people look at him as a cranking guy because he won the Classic, you know, cranking that riprap. But dude, I mean, put a Senko in his hand and let him chew up the shoreline, and he usually does pretty well.
That's pretty much all he really only needed 3 rods. He had a frog for some situations, and he had a glide bait for a few situations where he was trying to expose fish because there was so much pollen on the water. The water created, you know, a visibility issue for him, and where he was trying to find some bedding fish, and on day 3 and 4 he couldn't see anything. There was so much pollen on the water, so he was using a frog and a glide bait to expose fish. And then, like a lot of people don't do, which I never understood why. I remember asking Jamie Hartman one time, I think we were on Okeechobee, he was flipping the reeds, and a big like a 7-pounder came up and missed his bait. And he pitched in there a few more times, and he moved on. And at the end of the day, I asked him, that was like sort of midday, and I asked him at the end of the day, so I wouldn't get in his head, after the day was over, I said, how come you never went back and tried to catch that 7-pounder? And he literally looked at me and he goes, because I'm a dumbass. And so at least he was being honest, to his credit. But, you know, that's something that Randy definitely did. And when he saw a fish, if he couldn't catch it, he always came back to it, always. Even if he had 20 minutes left and he had to run by it to get back to takeoff, he managed his time really, really well. But he always came back to fish, even if he saw one swimming by a dock in 15 feet of water. He was like, I know that fish lives there somewhere. We just got to go back and try to find where that fish is. And sometimes, he was successful. Other times he wasn't, but I found that to be interesting. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed about, especially, it just sort of came up in my head when I was spending time with Randy, was the way the older anglers, the veteran, let's call them veterans because they're not old.
Yeah.
The veterans are evolving one way. The new kids on the block are having to evolve the other way. And I say that in that the veterans are evolving with their traditional old school techniques, and they're adapting that to their forward facing sonar, even in shallow water. Like, this is becoming more and more of a player. So they're adapting from old school to new school, and the new kids on the block, not that they don't know traditional methods, but they're evolving the other way, and they're heading towards the same pinnacle, but they're taking their new techniques, particularly front-facing sonar, and adapting that to traditional techniques. And I feel like there's a crossroads there where all of this blends itself together, and you've got yourself the new way of bass fishing, and you're blending old school and new school, but the young guys and the veterans are crisscrossing in how they're evolving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, somewhat. So
Bill,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bill Lowen. I went up to his boat on day 3, the morning at the dock, on the morning of day 3 before takeoff, and I said, "It's good to see you here again, Bill." He's made all four cuts this year.
Yeah,
and I think didn't he make the last 2 at the end of last year? So he's had like 6. He's made 6. He's got 6 straight paychecks, and Bill's a very good friend, and I love him and his whole family. But there at the end of really last year, I found him, to be, he was in the dumps. He wasn't doing well. He was, straightforward with his negativity towards front facing sonar and the new kids moving up. And I always make a point to go see him, especially on day 3, because I love him so much. But he said to me, he goes, Jake, I just finally figured out that what I needed to do was stop worrying about what everyone else was doing and start fishing the way I want to fish again and have fun. And that's all it took. And now I'm cutting a paycheck at every tournament. And I'm like, ta-da, there you go, folks.
Yeah. And he's been very open about that he let it get in his head, and and he's not anymore. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I still think he would let it disappear if he could. Like, I mean, if a genie landed and said, "Hey,
sure,
do we want this here or not?" But I mean, right now, that's what he's competing under. It does feel like, and I mean, might just all be in my head, but it feels like it's a lot closer to being limited now than ever. At least, I mean, and I'm strictly only speaking about bass, but I don't think it'll be eliminated. But I think it'll be limited to some extent in the future. And I pick up that vibe from anglers, it's just a vibe. I mean, it just feels like, it's all a freaking learning experience too. That's the thing. Like, people are like, I don't like this, it needs to go away. I hear you, but nothing started that way. Like, everything, they have to go through the learning experience, because I mean, if you look at the Alabama rig, which people love to compare it to, I mean, if anything, I would say that probably got eliminated too quickly.
I agree.
Because when it first came out, it won every single tournament, and it was super dominant, and it was like, that's all that's ever going to be seen. And that's why it went away. I mean, it was the anglers that drove it to go away. And now in retrospect, I mean, it wins when it's a thing, it's a thing. and it's tough to beat. But there's a lot of the year where it's not a thing.
So is a frog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like I think we're going to see that at Lake Fork. But yeah, I actually liken it somewhat to the NIL and transfer portal in college football where it's this new thing. And, when you gain something from it, like you gain a major college transfer because you had the funds to pay for NIL money, and you get this stud of a quarterback or stud of a running back or whatever that comes to your team from another team, then it's all great because you gained something. But then if someone comes and gets one of your players, then all of a sudden it's the worst thing ever and you hate it, And so, and I think
as a Tennessee fan, I feel like you're just opening up.
yeah, I am. I got a lot to say there about Nico Iamaleava. But I feel like it's the same thing, and it's just, it's a transitional time. It's an evolution in the sport, and it's all blending itself together. And like you said, I think it is working itself towards some kind of limitation. I don't believe that it's ever going to go away because it's part of the sport. But I do think, like you said, there's going to be some limitation. And what did it take? It took some experiences, some test labs, and, guinea pigs out there, operating the viewership responses, communication with the rest of the world to really sort of narrow this down. And I don't think it's to any surprise to any of us that have been patient, knowing this was going to come at some point, that it's going to create rules changes, and then once they settle into making everybody happy at the same time, then we can all move forward.
Yeah. Amen. And here's the other thing. On the internet, you would think that there's this group of young guys who are like, no, this can't go away. This can't go away, because that's how it's spelled out. I don't hear that. I hear anglers wanting. There's some anglers that don't like it, and I get that. I totally get that. There's negatives and positives with everything. But you don't hear a lot of the young anglers saying, no, we can't fish without this. In some ways, I've heard young anglers say, take it away. I want to show the freaking world that I can catch them. And there's going to be some of them that are going to have to adjust. But I think we're seeing that in so many ways. And it's similar to, weirdly, the NIL thing that you brought up, which initially I thought this was a horrible analogy. But when you think about it, so you get this super talented athlete that comes to your program, and that's great. Those are all positives. But that athlete also knows nothing about the playbook. And it's similar like when you look at a lot of these young anglers that are super talented and are accomplishing things, but they still got to work on the other part of the job, the on the camera stuff, just different things like that. So it is. What I'm saying is, it's going to be okay, people. Everybody just relax. It's just bass fishing.
And here's some positivity to add to this elaboration.
Don't say that word. That word's become a negative word.
Hey, but that's what we stand on, right? That's our foundation. Positivity.
I guess.
Aretha Franklin should have sang a song about positivity, like
Respect.
she did Respect. Yeah. So one of the really cool things that I see coming out of it, and I know you do too, are people like Rick Clunn and Cody Huff, Randy Howell and Drew Gill. There are people, and there's a lot more of them out there. I just can't name them off right now. There's old school collaborating with new school, and they're teaching each other what they know. Yeah. And I find that to be fascinating, because that's where the evolution is going. Just like we were saying, they're evolving across each other in two different directions, but it's all going to come back to meet at the same point. And I found it interesting that Randy talked a lot about Drew Gill and how much they work together and how much he learns from him. And he probably didn't say it as much, that he teaches him what he knows on his end of things as well. But that's how it goes, because if they're, they're sharing information. If they go out and practice between tournaments on, some neutral lake or whatever, and they're learning from each other. I mean, to me, that's where all this is going. And I find that to be fascinating. And I thought a lot about that when I was in the boat with Randy, and how perhaps his process and a lot of other anglers' processes are working right now, because maybe that's rejuvenating for them, Mercer. Maybe this gives them new life in that, man, this is fascinating. I'm learning something new. I wish I'd have opened up to these younger guys quicker, or whatever they're thinking. Maybe that's a restart and a new level of energy, especially with these guys that have sons that are up and coming anglers like Randy and Steven are. I mean, how cool is that?
I've run a Yamaha outboard for over 30 years. It has got me home safe each and every time. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, Yamaha supports it, and they care enough about you to make this ad read very short. Now back to the show.
Yeah, no, it's an evolution. And I think it's one of those things where nobody's ever going to be public wise totally happy about. You know what I mean? There's those that love the certain things, but I think the anglers are finding their way. That's what I'm finding, anyways. They're finding their way. It's just weird, because now the instinct that was always the way. Like when you listen to somebody like Drew Gillen, he's a dude. I don't even know Drew. I've just literally listened. I don't believe we've ever met. I know we've never met. I don't meet that many people that I wouldn't remember meeting them. But we've never met. But I've listened to his different interviews and stuff, and it amazes me, because he's very like cut and dry. Like it's not. It's just. The instinct is now replaced by certainty in some ways. Like if you watched how Wesley Gore fished fry garters on docks, I mean, I had an aha moment during the coverage where I was like, of course, like this is just math. It is literally math all over again. Like if you watch mathematically how Kevin changed the sport and how he put his bait in front of more fish. He didn't see those fish, but he put his bait in front of more fish and in turn caught more fish.
Right.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing. Wesley Gore would roll up on a dock and be move on. He would, so in one day of competition, he would literally mathematically fish 3 days worth of docks if you were fishing them the traditional way.
Exactly.
And that's what it's coming down to. Now, the debate of whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you like that. I mean, I think Swindle made a great video this week where he pulled into a campground. I don't know if you saw it, but he's like, I just pulled into a campground. There was all these people lined up watching their cork. And he says, that's how I grew up fishing, which most people grew up fishing. I mean, that's the first time you're afloat. I still love float fishing to this day. And I think it's because of childhood memories. But he's like, I wonder if those people would all be lined up there fishing and enjoying the sunset and laughing and doing whatever if they put a machine in and we're just like, there's one fish here. And when you think about it like that, you're like, that makes a really good point. I mean, it's wild.
Maybe they would if you gave them all a boat with front-facing sonar.
Yeah.
Because the guys with boats, I don't know what the sales numbers are on forward-facing sonar units, transducers, and monitors right now, but it's got to be pretty high when people save money to go buy one.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean,
but
it's X-ray vision. I mean,
yeah, basically.
Used to be a superpower.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's one of the things that I find interesting is you get in a boat with someone like Randy or Jason Christie or Bill Lowen or some of the veterans that use their traditional superpowers to guess as to what fish are doing. They catch 2 in a row, that becomes a pattern, then they turn that into a pattern. And Lake Hartwell is one of those perfect places that does that. When if you catch 2 or 3 in a row in a certain area or a certain environment, typically the whole lake is like that. And so, it makes it easy to pattern fish on a lake like that. But then you take the younger guys with FFS, and they're starting to have to do the same thing. Like, you listen again, I go back to Easton's commentary and some of his videos, but I hear it from, other people too. And the younger guys that are really, really good at this, they're having to read in detail what the fish are doing, because just because you see a fish on front facing sonar doesn't translate into a catch. And if it translates into a catch, if it's a school of fish, it doesn't mean you're going to go catch the biggest fish in that school. Usually it means you're going to catch the smallest fish in that school. And you learn what the big fish aren't going to do, which you really want them to do, which is eat your bait. But they're having to readjust to where they're not only seeing fish, they're reading what the fish are doing. So they're either, and the word flash is like the word that keeps coming up at these tournaments. When I'm talking to guys, they see this flash, and that flash makes a difference, because when, like Easton says, when in the open water, when you see the flash and the spot becomes hotter on your graph than it is when you first see the fish, that means the fish turned around. And I find that these little details that those guys, these micro details that those guys are adjusting to, are no different than the patterns and the details that the veterans were honing in on years ago to understand the fish better. And the more I learn and the more I'm in the boat with these guys, the more fascinated I am with how that whole system and technology and the way they use it is evolving for both the veterans and the young guys, because they're using it. They're using it in more detail now, and it's to me, you can call it video gaming all you want, and you can call it cheating or not fishing, whatever. I mean, even beside the fact that, it's fishing with a rod, a line, and a hook and a bait, and you're trying to entice a fish into eating it, I just think that what they're learning and how they're learning is truly fascinating to me.
You have on your notes here, and I mean, I told you to take notes. You took a lot of freaking notes. So if you guys wonder why I keep glancing off the side, because Jake sent me his notes right before, and I'm like, you took more notes in this than I take for the classic. Notably making decisions that younger anglers don't see. So what is that?
Like Wesley Gore moving on from dock to dock, not seeing them. Okay, that's one technique. That was something that Wesley Gore has adapted to using his front-facing sonar. Don't think that he's seeing everything and not missing a big fish here or two up on the other side of the wheel on a rolling walkway on a dock. The older guys are combing through everything with their baits, whereas some of the younger guys are looking and moving on. And no one is scared. That's the thing. When I was a kid and I was bass fish with my dad, or whatever we fish for, crappie, shell crackers, bass, whatever, walleyes, sauger, whatever it was, if someone was fishing near our hole, my dad would just get mad and go to another one. And and now, having been involved in this, elite series for 14 years, no one's scared to fish behind anyone, except maybe if John Cox is up there in shallow water, then you're just like, okay, I got to go find another spot. But no one's scared to fish behind another person anymore. Yeah. And I feel like it's because everyone has their own little secrets. One guy's throwing a white chatterbait through there. Another guy's throwing a pink fluke. Another guy's going to come through and flip a Senko in there or whatever it is. And they get bit. And the only reason they avoid each other now, at least most of what I see, is because they don't want to get in someone else's way because they were there first. It's not about whether someone picks a spot or a location or a cove or a row of docks or anything apart to the point to where they don't have confidence in it. Sometimes that's the case. Most of the time, they just don't want to disturb. It's respect, right?
Yeah.
But other times, if they see a guy pulling out of a cove, they keep going in there anyway, and they end up fishing it. And sometimes they go in and catch a big fish that the other guy missed.
Yeah.
And so, that's why live, to me, the perception of watching live bass fishing, whether you like the production values or not, when you're watching live bass fishing, that's what's so interesting to me. And even more so for us that are in the boat with these guys, we see what goes on between whenever our anglers on a live broadcast, we see what they're doing, the decisions that they make, even with their baits. When they change colors, they're using the same exact chatterbait, the same exact, soft body that they put on their chatterbait in a different color. And all of a sudden it makes a huge difference, and they lock in on that pattern and they start moving on, and they just start, the older guys just really, Greg Hackney's the prime example of that. He could literally take a fine tooth comb that's 12 inches long and make a cast between each bristle and end up catching a fish that some guy just came through, made 3 casts, didn't believe there was a fish in there, and moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's also the adjustment for a lot of the vets too, has been the things that they've gotten so used to seeing. And I don't mean even things in the water. I got a cool show coming up next week with John Cox, and he talks about it. But like his belief in not using it is because he doesn't want to block out all the other stuff, like the frog that jumped in the water, or all of a sudden I seen, some shad up in the shallow, or just even the movement of a stem of a lily pad. I mean, how many fish have been caught over the years because you just see the pads just kind of quiver under there, and something's making that happen. When you get locked into that screen, you start not seeing that. And
exactly,
it really is fascinating. And the truth of the matter is, fishing has always been, you do it as you wish. I mean, there's people that fly fish. There's people that, use mooching reels. It's just all there's bank. I mean, the truth is,
bait dunkers, bank fishermen, boat fishermen, bobber fishermen, artificial bait, whatever, worm fishermen, leeches, minnows, whatever it is. There's a variety of things that you can go do. And at the end of the day, fishing is about, when I go fishing, I do it to let steam off and go enjoy myself and just take the pressure away from my everyday life of being a dad to 3 young kids and having 2 small businesses that I have to operate, and the stress that comes with that. I go fishing to have fun.
Yeah. That's why everybody, started it. Nobody was like, there's where I'm going to dominate in life. It was just, it brings fun to you. And that's what the world needs to get back to focusing on, if you ask me. And we're going to have a fun week this coming week.
Oh my goodness.
Lake freaking Fork. I love that lake. I love the people.
Too.
I have such sentimental connections to them, because without the Toyota Texas Bass Classic giving me an opportunity, the guys from Octagon, Lenny and Katie and everybody from Octagon that, in Gulf states, that allowed me to MC that, Toyota Texas Bass Classic at Lake Fork, and all the people I got to meet over the years. There's no way I have this job, which is, here's another frustration thing. So many people. I'll get comments about this in this week's podcast. You know what the world needs to do? We need to take the top 15 from Bass and the top 15 from MLF, and we need to put them against each other. And I'm like, we did it for a freaking decade. It was the top 15 from FLW, the top 15 from Bass, and the top 15 from the PAA at the time. That event, I feel like, came before its time and weirdly didn't get the respect that it deserved. But that happened for years. But anyways, that's why, one of the reasons I love Fork. I love all the fine folks I run into there. You go to a tackle store, you go to a convenience store. It's just,
exactly.
It's great. It's like Okeechobee. It's a fishing community. It's a
culture.
More than Okeechobee even.
It's a culture.
You see businesses that are like roofing companies, and they have an angler spin on it. You know what I mean? Like everything is connected to
100%.
fishing.
I honestly, you nailed it. When we go to Lake Fork, I literally go to like the bait shops around the lake, and I shop for baits because I find baits there that I can't find in other places. And they have really nice apparel. Like they know how to run their bait shops. And it's like you said, it's because it's a culture. And I do think that Lake Okeechobee is a very good analogy of that. And perhaps Lake Hartwell is like that as well, where everybody around there revolves around the fishing community. That is what the resource is. They take advantage of that, not to mention what the state of Texas and their freshwater fisheries, what they do and how much they care. You know, I went with Bass University. I was filming with them a couple years ago, and we went to Lake Fork to film, and then we went over to the facility. I forget, was it in
Athens?
In Athens, Texas. We went to the facility, and the head of the fisheries department showed us, you know, the spawning mats,
the lunker bunker,
the lunker bunker, the tank in there where they bring in the 13 plus pounders in there and hold them until they're ready to spawn, to go into the spawning raceways and all that stuff. And you come out of there thinking to yourself, this is how I wish my state cared about bass. And then you start thinking about the revenue that produces for their state and every little town. Look what has happened to O.H. Ivy in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Once Milliken and Josh Jones and those guys exposed that lake, look what has happened there. I heard it went from literally nobody to, 700 plus guides on that lake. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's one of the things that I've heard. And the parking lot's always full now and all that stuff. So, Texas, just the state of Texas itself, and they built Lake Fork for that very reason, as I understand it. And they're going to continue to use that model to create more of those environments and lakes for people in towns like Yantis to thrive on. I mean, the restaurants thrive, the hotels thrive, and Lake Fork, I can't wait. I think this time of year, I do have a friend that lives on Lake Fork, Steve Eldred. He's a part-time guide. He's a fireman and an EMT in that area, and he guides part-time. And he told me, he just was texting me a couple of days ago, we're planning on getting together for a grill out or some beers or whatever during the tournament. And he had some clients out, and they were throwing a frog, and literally at that moment, he was texting me that he had already caught, I think 2 over 1.7, 1.7 3/4, and 1 8.5 pounder already that morning throwing a frog.
Gosh.
So this is going to be insane, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun one. I can't wait.
The live broadcast, for those of you watching this, and if you watch it tomorrow before we go live on Thursday, y'all better tune in, because this is going to be a giant bass crush.
Yeah. Everybody last year, the entire top 10 joined the Century Club. It was
exactly
ridiculous. And it always is. And the coolest thing about Texas, and like we've said, all the people that are connected to that, Texas Parks and Wildlife, is just how giddy they get about all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, whether it was Dave Terry, he's retired now, Tom Lang now. Like, I get texts from them randomly on a Tuesday. Oh, another sharelunker was caught today. Like, they're literally that excited that it is not incredible by accident. It's incredible because of the hard work. And the facility we're running the tournament out of now is truly world class. I mean, to go 2 in a row like that, where we used to run tournaments out of the Sabine River Authority land where it was always flooded and whatever, now is just, it's awesome. It's going to be a fun week. So if you see either Jake and I at the event, holler at us. I mean, I always love to meet humpers. It continues to entertain me when somebody yells, "Proud humper," and love me some humpers. Busted Tim Doobie last week because I was doing live with him, and people started yelling up the hill, "Hey, I'm a humper!" And I said, "I love humpers." And Doobie goes, "What's a humper?" And I'm like, "Well, clearly," I said, "Do you listen to my podcast?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "No, you don't." And he showed it to me. I'm like, "If you don't know what a friggin' humper is, you don't listen." So Tim Doobie's a good dude, a lot of nice things, but he's not a humper.
Hey, you would think a doobie would know how to hump. Hey, I said it.
You did. Well, it's going to be a fun tournament. I look forward to seeing you there, and make
Can't
sure
wait.
to
I'll
check
leave
it out.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I leave tomorrow morning. I have a direct flight into Dallas, jump in my rental car and head to Yantis. And the first thing I'm going to do is hit those bait shops and spend all my money.
And here's the weird thing. I mean, and I love orange. Amazing people will see an orange in the following week. But what were we thinking? I mean, we should have went orange then to Fork. I mean, we're going Sabine River. We're going from Lake freaking Fork. And then we're going to go to Sabine River. People are going to start catching bass that are the size of the baits that they were using the week before. It is going to be bizarre, but they're both going to be great events.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Yeah, there's going to be glide baits and swim baits at Fork that are going to be bigger than the bass that are going to be weighed in at the Sabine River.
I'll go on record to say this: the big bass at Lake Fork, whatever it's going to be, that big bass will be a good bag on day one at the Sabine. Like, it'll put you in contention.
What's your prediction on the biggest bass at Lake Fork?
I mean, we're double digited. We got to have a double digit.
11.7, 11.1, and 11.7 are the two biggest bass ever caught on live on Bassmaster.
And one was on Fork. But they were both on Fork?
Both on Fork. So Hamner caught his on Fork, and Brandon Cobb caught his on Fork.
That's right. That's right.
An 11.1 and 11.7. I'm making a prediction right now that someone's going to, because there's going to be fish caught off beds for sure. And my prediction is that we're going to break that record.
So we're going to have one bigger than 11.7.
I think we're going to have one close to 12 pounds.
Yo, I hope so. Can't wait. As always, an amazing Jake's Take. Well, I'll see you in a few hours on Lake Fork.
Can't wait. Thanks, Dave.
So that's it. That's all. I thank you for tuning in. I thought this was a fun show, and I hope you all agree. Keep the grow going. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all those things that help stroke the algorithm and keep this show cool. Speaking of which, fine streamers, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for all the ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Keep that rolling, and we'll keep showing up here each and every Wednesday. Have a great week. Life is short. Enjoy being and spread happiness, because guess what? It just feels better. I think so anyways, and I hope you agree. Hey, humpers, if you make it to Lake Fork, make sure to say hi. I'll see you there. Until next time, enjoy being, and as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?